Welcome to yet another episode of the Dynamic CIO. A company's capacity to adapt to a changing business environment plays a major role in determining its ultimate success. Manufacturing companies constantly strive to improve their ability to respond successfully to customers' changing needs and preferences, disruption in their supply chains, ever changing increasing competition, and similar challenges. In the past, manufacturing companies relied on methodologies such as benchmarking, total quality management, and Kaizen to improve their business and production processes. Emerging digital technologies such as industrial Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and so on have the potential to help the manufacturing companies overcome these constraints. The current pandemic, COVID-19, the talk of the town from more than a year, is the main reason for the present buzz about the digital transformation. Not delving into more details, I have with us to discuss this further Mr. Sudip Mazumder, Global Chief Digital and Information Officer, Piramal Glass. A little about him. Here, he is responsible for reinforcing the digital transformation journey and is leading the next phase of Digital 2.0 that the company has embarked on. This includes setting up advanced analytics technology stack and building a dedicated team of professionals running a digital center of excellence and academy through which business use cases will be driven using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning to impact the bottom line. So, welcome to the show, Mr. Majumdar.
Thank you very much, Shruti. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and share my experience and talk possibly a little wider than the company as well, because I believe then as a professional we need to do justice when not just look at only your organization, but as a professional and contributor to the world of knowledge or world of skills. We should talk a little bit wider at the industry level or possibly at a global level too.
Sure, sir. Great. So, without much delay, let me start with the question. The first question, obviously, it will be a COVID-related question. March 2020, yeah, more than a year back, was the time when the lockdown was announced first, and that's when the company started recalibrating their technology. All companies, I'm saying, from an industry level, started recalibrating their technology infra and try to realign it with the phenomenon called work from home. And digitization was a key to business resilience during this period. And as I said earlier, the pandemic has just accelerated the digital transformation from a nice have to a must have. How did you see the shift, and what were the important lessons learned by the industry?
Thank you very much. This is so relevant a question. Probably I'll be taking 3 hours to answer this question. I'll try to make it in 3 minutes. Okay. This work from home, it's a new concept, possibly some part of the world, but it's not in all the parts of the world. Work from home always has been there. And if I go back 12, 13, 14 years also, when I used to be abroad, I used to do that. Only 2 days I used to go to, from London to Macclesfield in AstraZeneca headquarters. And the whole program I was running, 5.5 million program, sitting in a London home. So that's not something that it's very new. What's new is the mindset. COVID actually, what normal circumstances could not do, the COVID did it. So there's always a positive side of any negative phenomenon. It's basically that. I have seen a lot of people after coming back in 2012, and I've seen a lot of people, a lot of senior executives are not pro to this idea work from home, right? And that includes software companies as well, right? And we thought that the productivity is only at home. Of course, there could be debate on that, but not necessarily true. And I've seen that happening in multiple organizations. So work from home was always practical concept. We did not take it as a concept because we were kind of the old mindset actually grappled our mind and we could not do that. But now we are ready to do that. And everybody, the people actually who said it cannot be done, now they're saying that, oh, this is the way to go. I'm very happy to see that change, but change could have been little earlier. Now talking about this today's Zoom, the Teams and all these, 2015, 2016, actually, I got the Zoom. Can you believe it in one of our earlier organizations, right? So now how the Zoom came in, that's why at that time it was LYNC link. There was a Skype and we were looking at that, how do we do multi-site collaboration, meetings, etc. And the Zoom came into that, of our research. and um, and then we wanted to look at what is the byte size actually per second the consumption, because lync was quite by consuming, and we found link actually sorry Zoom was actually, I think, one third of the lync consumption. And actually we took the license for that, the Zoom. So we started these things long ago, these technologies experimenting. It only got matured, only got very mature, of course, only got matured, only got hyper used kind of COVID 19 situation. I think that way absolutely fantastic. Remote monitoring, remote inspection, all these are a fantastic way to go into this post COVID world, which earlier my last organization also, if you look at, basically say infrastructure like construction world. It's one of the largest companies in the country, and I've seen that there's a belief that it has to be an authority engineer who has to come and see. Actually, it's gone now. I mean, there are a lot of technology which can do it, and I think I'm in a way. Of course, COVID has taken a lot of toll on the civilization itself. We should not be talking selfishly, but at the same time, I must say that it has done something good for us as well, to look at the life, the corporate life, the work life in a new perspective.
What you said, your previous organization, that infrastructure, you were in London. You made quite a switch from technology to an engineering firm to a manufacturing, and you have joined in the middle of pandemic. Is it any different that you think, or how you think that the best practices can be deployed anywhere, irrespective of the verticals? And how have these 6-7 months been?
Thank you very much again. So let me tell all my interviewers on this, the people who interview, not you, even the job interviews. I always say that uh, when you talk to me as a candidate for any kind of interview, two, three things I bring onto the table. One is my global experience. And it's not just sitting in one place and just going there, touch base, come back, and try to understand what happens in Europe, sitting here. No, I was there, been there, done that, right? I got integrated with that society to understand as well and how it happens. So that's a huge plus. I can tell you that, when you have a multicultural, multiracial, multi-country experience and been there, done that, it's a very different perspectives in life you get. And that's one. Secondly is, as you rightly said, that I was in technology services from, and I switched to the other side of it, the consumer of the services, right? And I've seen many times the consumer of the services don't understand how the service providers are, and vice versa. Right? And I'll be very honest. I used to talk about in my one of the largest organizations that I've ever served, right? And we used to talk about TCO. We used to talk about total cost of ownership. We used to talk about TCO of the program, etc. I never saw a TCO template before I actually joined one of the banks in UK, right? And then I saw the complexity of that and how finance technologies have come together and a lot of other concepts. So I'm saying that you need to understand both sides of the world, controls, to be a 360-degree professional. So that's the second part of it. So yes, there is no. I mean, that's a value we bring in, and I personally bring in. Now, having said that, industry knowledge. Today, so most of the times, McKinsey team will be telling you that out of the top 20 banks, 6 are actually the fintechs, right? So the fintech, the technology, they're not the banks even to do with it, right? So I think it's a myth that manufacturing world doesn't need the world doesn't need the banking world doesn't need the insurance world. I can tell you right now 3 examples where insurance needs IoT, right? IoT needs, and manufacturing also needs IoT. But a lot of convergence is happening. So it's a horizontal to me. It's your eyes, it's your application oriented thought, technology oriented thought that will bring that kind of value to your industry or to the company that you are associated with, right? There's a second part of it. Having said that, my jumps from, though I was in technology service providers, no doubt about it, but I worked with the banks, the insurance, the manufacturing, the automotive companies, and at Elan. So I went from A to B, B to C, and pharmaceutical companies, and I never saw that my knowledge or my skill was kind of redundant, and I always saw that it's really really relevant. Even today, what I learned 15 years ago, 12 years ago, even today they're relevant in Indian market. One of the Indian entrepreneurs told me, no, 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 that thing happens in Europe, and I told him that out of the 10 things that I learned from Europe and applied it here, and six worked actually, and in my experience. So it's a question of how do you look at it, how do you experiment in life, and a zeal to succeed. Not necessarily will be always, but there's no hard one. There shouldn't be any hard one, because there are other 100 things to learn, 100 things to apply. Now, this the last part of the question is, which I love, is so what is the experience of joining in the during the time of pandemic? Possibly I'll write a column on that, and it's there in my to-do list. Haven't got the time. Certainly there are positives and there are certain few negatives there. As positives is basically an experience possibly in next 100 years only few executives will be having, right? So only a handful but taking that challenge itself is a great plunge to my mind. And you need to excel. One needs to excel in work from home, knowing the senior executives, in your team, knowing the juniors in the team across locations. It needs huge communication skill. Huge. I think this is one of the areas actually is emerging. Not only technology, communication. How do I make myself presentable in front of you? How do I speak with somebody whom I never met? Right? What should be my language? What sanity I should use in my language? Right? And how do I even pronounce the stuff? Because when I talk to, in our company also, when I talk to somebody in US, somebody in Europe, somebody in Sri Lanka, of course, the different types of pronunciation, different. It goes back to those I told you, the cross-cultural, cross-racial work environment, right? To have plunged during this time, there's a positive side. It refined me a little bit from what I learned because of different geography, kind of. Yeah, geographies operations were different. Negative side is, I must say that because there's always a need to have a human touch. Always a need to have a human touch just to ensure that not the formal side of it, little bit informal side of it, the human being as well. It's needed, because we are all social animals. So we need at that part to also know each other a little bit. It has been a terrific experience over a period of time. Having said that, as you said, the technology to manufacturing to construction to technology, I think I'm very dynamic guy that way, and I feel that wherever I go, I get the knowledge, plow it back, get some more. So it's a dynamic world. I don't want to stop somewhere, but yes, that's the way that you can actually do a lot of things. Even one of the examples possibly was very good for you. uh, Very few people know about it. So I am part of ASSOCHAM's National Council for Digitalization of Tunneling and Underground Construction. Yeah, there's a body that I'm co-chairing that this year. So that's completely ENC world, a completely different world. But I love to experiment with such technologies and in different industries. And thanks to my earlier organization who gave me huge advantage of knowing such things. And being a civil engineer, working in the IT and digital field, going back to that kind of world, talking to brilliant people around, brilliant engineers around, it gives me a different kind of a kick as well. I mean, it's a dexterity of mind that how do you run yourself in multiple world, and I love to do that. Yeah,
This is
thank you.
one of the most sparkingly dynamic conversations that I'm having.
And I keep my radar, always up so that I can learn something. And today also, I have my own personal targets of reading 5 articles, while on the go, right? And I do that, and I've seen that it works. And to be a global professional today, it's important to read, important to understand, important to empathize, because the world is changing very, very fast. And I think one of the important things also is continuously mingling with multiple professions. And trust me, I am blessed with that. I always say that my wife is a doctor and she's a robotic surgeon as well. So there's a commonality, robotic surgeon. But at the same time, it's a completely different world, and I see the selfless thoughts, selfless service they're doing, right? And I've never seen her in the last 1.5 years complaining about not to go to the hospital because there is a danger. And see myself, last 2 months have not been out. I think, out of the home. And I think this is a perspective we need to think, we need to ponder when you are alone, when you are with other people as well. And that's what I'd like to continuously build myself, towards the perfection. I don't want to be a perfect person. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I mean, these, some of your examples, your experience is giving a lot of perspective in terms of leadership, just not, I feel privileged that I am the one who's on the other side listening to you. So thank you so much. Moving to a little more technical question. What is the digital 2.0 mindset focus on?
See, I would say I'll take a little narrow view and a wider view. Yeah. Now 4.0, 2.0, these are all numbers to me. But when I look at 4.0, is it really 4.0? Industry 4.0, IR, Ford, Ford IR. I mean, I wrote a column in the Express that it's 4.x, right? 2.0 came, sorry, 4.0 came into 2012 for Hanover in Germany. Why we're so hang up to 2012 idea? Today is 2021. We have seen a huge change in the atmosphere, huge change in the corporate and the social atmosphere, right? And if you look at the framework of 2012, I can tell you, in fact, I wrote about that. 2012, it's all about machine, it's all about machine sensors. Today, we have got people to, people, the safety, the environment. At the same time, we must talk about in the manufacturing shop floor. You can't just talk about machine and the robotization of the machine. It's ultimately people who are working. And more importantly, even if you do a robotization of the factory, 100%, the people who will be managing that, even if they're sitting at home, they're actually prone to have the COVID, right? So it is a much larger picture than need to have. That 4.0 is gone. Let's not talk about 4.0 anymore. That's passe to me, right? I'm very confident about it. I'm with very under huge conviction. I'm talking about it. We must get. If you talk about sensor, talk about whatever this data you talk about, you must have human touch in it, right? That's the first part. 2.0. Okay, now it's a little bit narrower view I take. So 1.0 is all about POC, POV, as I call it, proof of value, proof of concept. When you do a proof of concept, you are not, you don't know the technology will work or not, right? Whether this technology, particular emerging technology, it is a proof of concept in terms of technology. Once it works, you go for a pilot or the POV, which is proof of value. What is value? Value is the perspective of the company. Technology works, but whether it works for the company or not. I'll give an example. Bluetooth as a technology is there for a long time in the market, right? We did a POC in one of the, I mean, we knew that it works, right? We knew it worked. But when we tried in my last organization, in one of the sites, we first talked about a POC. Let's do on the construction site it works or not, and it worked. But the moment we wanted to see a POV, which is another site or two other sites, it failed. So POC may work, but POV, proof of value, will fail. It may fail. Sorry. What it means to me is uh, the POC, the stage wise POC, then POV. Once you do that, then always you go for scale. So POC, POV, scale, advanced analytics, scale further in terms of your installation, scale further in terms of advanced analytics, and go for a little more and more technology, right? Some technology will be in, of course, the POC stage. Of course, like quantum computing at this point in time is a POC stage, possibly, right? So obviously there will be some technology in the POC, some will be in the POV, some in the scale. Some. So 1.0 is about that. 2.0 is about go even beyond, right? Scale even beyond. Technology, some technology which you don't know, go for a POC, but technology which you have excelled, you have installed, go for it. That's what the 2.0 is. So this is not only one company mantra. I think this should be mantra for all. So one narrower view is a company specific, but if I extrapolate that, it is possibly for everybody to look that way. That's from my perspective. So in our company is very specific. If I look at, we have done great amount of work last 3 years, 3 4 years, and then during the pandemic, we took a huge call to engage with McKinsey to go for advanced analytics, and amazing work we have done together, in terms of getting the use cases, getting the data, doing some models, mathematical models around it, advanced techniques, you know, advanced analytics techniques, and actually bringing in the savings on the shop floor. But that's one part of the stuff value. To do that, you need to have the infrastructure. Now, what infrastructure is? Basically, I'm talking about the technology infrastructure, and the second one is the people and the capability. Both sides need to develop, because if you have the technology, we don't have people. I mean, people means, it can outsource it as well, but you need to have, from your organization perspective, what do you want to do? You want to outsource, you want to insource, you want to outsource, insource, that kind of. So people capability also need to be developed, and the data tech development. I think we've done a wonderful job. Some of the stuff that we have done, possibly from the company and industry's perspective, and talk about, gigification, which is, I know the gig worker everybody knows about, right? Everyone knows a gig worker, gig economy, talk about. So even though the concept is there, so we did the first gigification in the company during this time. Now, gigification is basically we got a data architect as a gig model, right? Hourly model. The company hasn't done this hourly model stuff. So we had to look into the policies. Can we do that? How do we do it? These are the experimentation you'll have to do. And I actually very fortunate to have worked in a gigification journey with one of the largest engineering organization in US, where they were trying to gigify 8,000 engineers, right, during the COVID. So I'll not talk about that, but if somebody can do, some organization dare to dream to do gigification for 8,000 engineers sitting in 50 different countries, what about one? Okay, it's a good start. So that's one. Secondly is, I don't know, we did implemented blockchain. I think this is a time now, we should be going for more and more. We have started also journey. So we wanted to get now customers completely onboarded, end customers. We've done some proxy customers in between, because the way we are set up is, our own organization also is a kind of a customer in other parts of the world that we have done. But now genuinely, our customers, and luckily, this is a good thing is that they're onboarding themselves onto our platform, and I think it's a quite a bit of positive side, in terms of when customers and suppliers come on board on a particular technology. So that means it's a huge challenge for us as well as for them to make it a success. And I believe blockchain has got a good future, especially where they're prone to disputes, prone to some kind of misalignments of thoughts, data, etc. But one particular part I always talk about, I don't know whether I talked about it not earlier in any of the interviews, uh, which is protection of IP. Protection of IP. So um, when you work with a customer, especially the customer who are in the IP domain, who are actually an IP, so because when they're asking you to do something, that's their IP. I need to protect that, right? My organization must protect that IP for them, for my customer, right? For my ecosystem. And blockchain is a fantastic tool to think about it. Yeah, when somebody is giving me a said, what we make some bottle, right? Let's say CNP, which is cosmetics and perfumery, and we have some of the largest names in the world as a customers, right? So when they give me a bottle, a new bottle for the, if they're in the fashion industry, right? A bottle is an IP for them, right? Design of a bottle. So how do I protect that? How do I take that online collaboration? How do I take that and make sure that it is protected? It is not there anywhere, and we work. Probably blockchain is a good idea to explore that area. I'm sure that we'll be doing it very soon. So that's true. And the third one is, as I said to you, it's all about scale. 2.0 is all about scale, but certainly we'll have to look at some of the technologies which are coming up, some of the technologies which are in other industries, but we'll have to think of now how do we do it in this industry, right? And I've got plenty of examples, and we have done some work around that. Like, uh, you'll be happy to see or happy to hear that we have experimented with industrial CT scan technology. CT scan is where in the healthcare. People think the moment I say CT scan is healthcare, right? industrial CT scan can be deployed in our industry to understand our product characteristics. Right now, I may sound like very esoteric, but actually it's not. I can give you 10 examples why it is important to understand the consistency of a product through a technology. And the technology is CT scan here, but it could be ultrasound, it could be something others also. But see, ultrasound is also a medical technology in a way, right? But it has got a lot of applications to other industries as well. But the point I'm saying that, it's just an example. We need to go to the other industries as well, because the industry that I belong to now is a glass manufacturing or glass bottle manufacturing, container glass manufacturing. It's a little different, right? A little different than even the flat glass, and that's what my last 8 months, 9 months of experience. And I've spoken with a lot of pundits in this area to look at what's happening in the glass manufacturing and understanding the glass as a product. Container bottle is a little different than normal flat glass. So I said there is an opportunity in the 2.0 to harness technologies, practices from other industries as well. We need to keep that thing in mind as well. Scaling, harnessing other technologies from other world, and of course, as I said, that keep doing it in the do loop. Yeah.
Great, sir. I mean, a good way to summarize as well. Also, in our conversation in the earlier one, as now that we are having, you said your wife was a frontline worker, right? We are still not out of the pandemic. As you said, from 2 months we've been home. And this is a second wave which is going on. And this second wave seems to be more deadly and devastating. You think plans which were made in 2020 are now redundant, or we need to make new plans, or they just need some more fine tuning? How do you see the roadmap? Because we don't know, there are still talks going on about a third wave might come in. There is a black and a white fungus which has already come in. I don't know which color palette fungus is yet to come. What is the roadmap for the future?
Well, it's a great question, hardest question possibly. You should be asking it to some real pundits, not a pseudo pundits like me. But um, I think few elements that we need to understand, or possibly we need to practice. We always understand, but we need to practice, which is what is fixed and what is not fixed, what is fixed and what is dynamic, kind of, right? You can't plan something which is dynamic and uncertain. Of course, you can't plan, but you can get ready by thinking about. So it's basically risk perception, right? Now, so going by risk perception, you'll have to plan um, something which is uncertain differently, something which is known and will be there, so you can always plan with certainty. And of course, COVID-19 has thrown a lot of uncertainties, extra uncertainties we never thought of, right? So we were other day we were having a dialogue from Francisco de Souza, who is the ex CEO of Cognizant, right? He was talking about his own experience about transformation, and he was talking about, and one of the things he talked about, that thinking to the future. And I was part of the Cognizant, so I know that what happened. So there's a funder called H1, H2, H3. When you are H1, the current products and services. The H2, which is kind of next generation. Third is H3, is basically the next to next generation, which is really, really emerging, right? So I think we need to look at that from every perspective. So what is it today and what is it tomorrow? Only thing I'm talking about, possibly in some company it will be 18 months, some company it will be 24 months, that perspective, H1, H2, H3. In our life, unfortunately, it has become a month now. Right? If I can survive this week, how do I survive next week? Right? What's next? It's like, as you're saying, wave 2, wave 3, these are waves. Typically I'm seeing that 3 to 4 months, right? So these 4 months is my H1. I mean, my strategy is H1 equivalent. Next 4 months is basically another wave. Possibly I'll have to think of differently. What it has, I'm telling it very lightly, but it has possibly prompted us to think risk-based planning. Risk-based planning. I'm giving a perspective now on that. So I'm bringing back to you my world, which is, with this question, the project management. The project management which is also very uncertain. I mean, I'm not saying that as uncertain as COVID world is, but project management is also quite uncertain, right? And luckily, I've been in touch with some of the world gurus in project and program management who taught me a few lessons, and even today they are relevant. Yeah, they taught me probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. Now the question, what the point I was trying to say that is, if you look at the project management, which is uncertain, and the project management in India, project management in Europe, project management in US are very differently wired in terms of thinking. In India, when I look at, generally I see that it cannot be done because everything is dynamic. Rightly so, because I don't know if I get out of my home and go to my office whether it takes 10 minutes or 20 minutes, right, or half an hour. Whereas if you go to the Europe, you'll see that a bus is supposed to come to a stop at 10:02. It will come at 10:02. It is supposed to go at 10:02:45. It will go at 10:02:45, almost like a machine, right? Certainty. So it's wired. You know, the a culture, or the part of the world is wired to that, right? So you get to see a lot of things certain. Some part of the world see everything is uncertain. So uncertainty, wherever there is uncertainty, so you'll have to have a little more caution, little more risk perception, that you'll be delayed. So even in that society also, I've seen, if you're, it always says that if you think that you'll be delayed, start early, even at 10:02. Now if we know that we are completely uncertain, we don't start early, right? We don't keep enough plan B, plan C, plan D, right? So it is all about that. I'm just bringing a very large, complex problem to my world, which is a project management of few millions in nature, right? Or maybe some, I mean, depending on, but risk perception, right? A stark word difference. That's why I said that communication is so important also let's kind of it's sort of interwoven, uh, I've seen a lot of PowerPoint presentation on the project management approach, CSF, critical success factors, right? Which is true, which is exactly the opposite of risks, right? But we want to talk positive, so that's why it's a CSF. You go to Europe, you'll see that risk management, risk workshop is absolutely mandatory to do. Otherwise, you will not be given the go ahead to with a project or a program. You have to do a risk workshop. So it is about the perception. I think it's time that we acknowledge that risk is a good thing in terms of to perceive, right? That will give you a little bit more certainty that you think, right? Talking risk is not negative. Talking risk and taking mitigating action is positive thing, right? So possibly, during the pandemic, we have understood that more. And unfortunately, as I said to you, the lifeline of that understanding, or the or the timeline of that understanding has become very kind of shrunk. It has shrunk quite a lot. Yeah. So we don't know even like next week. I mean, what's going to happen. So I think I'll end with that. There's always a positive things in this uncertainty. I think every one of us, like we take the mask or we take all different types of precautions. So this is nothing but precaution, perception of risk, and take the actions. Right? I think we should do more and more, not only in our masking or hand washing, but we should do it at every walk of life. Right? Thank you.
So I'm having a great takeaway from every answer of yours. I mean, your perception of risk, you're putting it in such simple words and giving great takeaways. I would love this conversation to go more, but in the paucity of time, I will ask you one last question. Uh, digital. As we move ahead, we spoke about it. Digitization is going to shift gears. What do you think will be the changes that the industrial digital leaders will anticipate? And as you said, about the plan B, plan C, we have to be prepared and perceive the risk in a different way. But how should they be prepared?
As I told you, they're very difficult to, especially in the technology world. If I look at, it's very difficult to say. But again, there's some broad mantras, as I was talking about H1, H2, H3, broad mantras that it's all about risk perception, right? It's a as the professor said, that dexterity of strategy, right? You have to do both the things, or in other words they call it bimodal operation, which is one mode is a kind of right now, and the second one, so again this is the same thing. I would say that, how will they do it? Every company has got its own culture. Every company has to do it their own way. But I must say that some companies are run only by today and tomorrow. Some companies are run by not only the today, tomorrow, and possibly year one and year two, right? I think those companies will be better off, I would say, who are thinking also year one and year two. However, not necessarily they'll be better off today and tomorrow, because today and tomorrow is a much larger challenge of COVID, a much larger challenge of this. But such preparedness possibly will be helping, right? Will be helping. So how they'll be doing, it's an organization culture. Possibly we need to have an innovation culture, agility culture, right? Take decisions on the go rather than pondering over something whether it will give or not give something, right? Some parties, as I said, again, this, it's a different language. Some is a calculated risk, some are uncalculated. That it's a territory, it's a black box. You don't know what's going to happen, but jump in it, because something good possibly will come up. And for that you need the right people as well. You need to have right people as well, who should not be told what to do, right? It should not be told what to do. They should be just going there, because you have to trust in them, right? And they will figure out how to, because not everybody is for H1, H2, H3, right? There are some people who are H3, some people who are H2, some people are H1. Understand them, identify them, and unleash them. That's most important. Unleashing is absolutely important, right? That's it. I think there's no really a right or wrong answer on that. How do you do it? Every company does it differently. The people who do it better will survive short and longer term.
Thank you, sir. The whole conversation, as I said earlier, has been dynamic and fully brimming with positivity. I'm so glad to have this with you. And on behalf of Dynamic CIO, I would like to thank you for your time and this conversation.
Thank you very much, Ruti. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, knowing you as well. And all the best. Stay safe and healthy.